President's position that we, the United States, should not, and the American people cannot, pay a ransom in exchange for Congress doing its job remains as true today as it has been throughout this period.
As Mr. Rogers from the old TV show used to say, can you spell hypocrisy? Sure you can.
For the House, a privileged concurrent resolution.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 24. Resolved that when the Senate recesses or adjourns on any day from Wednesday, October 16th, 2013, through Friday, October 25th, 2013, on a motion offered pursuant to this concurrent resolution by its majority leader or his designee, it stand recessed or adjourned until 12 noon on Monday, October 28th, 2013, or such other time on that day as may be specified by its majority leader or his designee in the motion to recess or adjourn, or until the time of any reassembly pursuant to Section 2 of this concurrent resolution, whichever occurs first. And that when the House adjourns on any legislative day from Wednesday, October 16th, 2013, through Monday, October 21st, 2013, on a motion offered pursuant to this concurrent resolution by its majority leader or his designee, it stand adjourned until 2 p.m. on Tuesday, October 22nd, 2013, or until the time of any reassembly pursuant to Section 2 of this concurrent resolution, whichever occurs first. Section 2. The majority leader of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, or their respective designees, acting jointly after consultation with the minority leader of the Senate and the minority leader of the House, shall notify the members of the Senate and House respectively to reassemble at such place and time as they may designate if, in their opinion, the public interest shall warrant it.
And quote, the support of the public credit. The affirmative duty of the Treasury Department to do so is underscored by the 14th Amendment. Our revenues are more than 10 times our debt payments, so paying the debt first to prevent a sovereign default is well within the financial ability of the federal government. Indeed, it is a fiscal imperative. Earlier this year, the House passed H.R. 807, which not only explicitly requires the payment of the national debt in the case of an impasse over the debt limit, but even allows the president to exceed the debt limit itself in order to protect the nation's credit. That measure languishes in the Senate under the threat of a presidential veto. Protecting the sovereign credit by prioritizing payments would mean delaying paying other bills. That is also untenable, unthinkable, and something much to be avoided. But it would not imperil the nation's sovereign credit. Only the president can do that. The House leadership met with the president last week and offered to extend the debt limit until November 22nd with no strings attached. The president refused. Senate Republicans offered a 6-month extension, but the Senate Democratic leader refused. What the president threatens to do would be catastrophic and unprecedented. The full faith and credit of the United States is what gives markets the confidence to loan money to the federal government. Even a threat of default, exactly the kind the president is now making, could have dire consequences to a nation that now owes more than its entire economy produces in a year. So where do we go from here? Republicans have miscalculated on 2 key assumptions. First, that the Democrats would negotiate the issues that divide our country. They have not. Second, that Democrats would seek to minimize the suffering caused by the impasse. They have not. Given the ruthless and vindictive way the shutdown has been handled, I now believe that this president would willfully act to destroy the full faith and credit of the United States unless the Congress acquiesces to all of his demands, at least as long as he sees political advantage in doing so.
Made clear that we see progress in the Senate. We see in the Senate process the kind of bipartisan effort that is the path to resolving these kinds of issues. When it comes to these simple responsibilities that Congress maintains, opening the government, funding it, making sure Congress pays its bills. And we hope that all of Congress takes the appropriate action to ensure that they do not continue to inflict harm on the American economy.
One other thing I want to clarify, since you've been talking, a spokesman for Speaker Boehner has said that for you to say that a senior administration official on Thursday's meeting did not proactively raise the medical devices issue is astoundingly dishonest, and that it was a senior administration official who proposed it in those talks. So can you just clarify that?
I think I've answered the question 3 times. No. Look, there have been conversations about the medical device tax because Republicans have been putting it on the table and others have been talking about it. What we have always said is that we've never ever proposed or agreed to pay ransom in exchange for opening the government.
Because you see, he comes to the floor repeatedly and says things which aren't altogether accurate. That's why I wanted to speak to him today, and he yielded for a question, and I thank him. I'm sorry he's left, because I'd like to further engage in dialogue. There's a reason why he left. There are questions he can't answer.
Senators voting in the affirmative. Alexander, Ayotte, Baldwin, Barrasso, Baucus, Bekich, Bennett, Blumenthal, Blunt, Bozeman, Boxer, Brown, Burr, Cantwell, Cardin, Carper, Casey, Chambliss, Chiesa, Coates, Cochran, Collins, Coons, Corker, Donnelly, Durbin, Feinstein, Fisher, Flake, Franken, Gillibrand, Hagan, Harkin, Hatch, Heinrich, Heitkamp, Hirono, Hoven, Isaacson, Johans, Johnson of South Dakota, Kane, King, Kirk, Klobuchar, Landrieu, Leahy, Manchin, Markey, McCain, McCaskill, McConnell, Menendez, Merkley, Mikulski, Moran, Murkowski, Murphy, Murray, Nelson, Portman, Reed of Rhode Island, Reed of Nevada, Rockefeller, Sanders, Schatz, Schumer, Shaheen, Stabenow, Tester, Thune, Udall of Colorado, Udall of New Mexico, Warner, Warren, Whitehouse, Wicker, and Wyden. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Pryor, aye. Mr. Levin. Mr. Levin, aye. Senators voting in the negative. Coburn, Cornyn, Crapo, Cruz, Enzi, Heller, Johnson of Wisconsin, Lee, Paul, Risch, Roberts, Rubio, Scott, Sessions, Shelby, Toomey, and Vitter.
We've repeatedly warned that the American people will be shocked when they realize the way that the president has misled the American people about Obamacare. The embarrassing rollout of the exchanges doesn't even begin to scratch the surface.
The absurdity, I'm not sure if this is Joseph Heller or if it's Fellini. The Tea Party Republicans came here because they were concerned about the debt. The debt, Mr. Speaker, was caused by Reagan and Bush. Look at the records. Reagan and Bush caused the debt.
On this vote, there are 81 yeas, 18 nays. The bill is reported as is passed and as amended, and under the previous order, the title amendment is agreed to. Without objection, the motion is agreed to. Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to the consideration of Econ Res 25, which the clerk will report.
Calendar number 33, HCon Res 25, establishing the budget for the United States government for fiscal year 2014 and setting forth appropriate budgetary levels for fiscal years 2015 through 2023.
And under the previous order, amendment number 2006 is agreed to. The motion to reconsider considered made, laid upon the table. HCon Res 25 is amended is agreed to. The motion to reconsider is considered.
President, I rise today in opposition to the deal that the Senate is getting ready to vote on. This is a terrible deal. This deal embodies everything about the Washington establishment that frustrates the American people. This deal kicks the can down the road. It allows yet more debt, more deficits, more spending, and it does absolutely nothing to provide relief for the millions of Americans who are hurting because of Obamacare.
Tonight, Republicans and Democrats in Congress have come together around an agreement that will reopen our government and remove the threat of default from our economy. The Senate has now voted to approve this agreement, and Democrats and Republicans in the House still have an important vote to take. But I want to thank the leaders of both parties for getting us to this point. Once this agreement arrives on my desk, I will sign it immediately.
Here we are again. Another unnecessary crisis. A proposal that maintains the status quo. Very little time to read and evaluate the bill. In fact, we still don't have a final version of the text. No time to explain it to our constituents. This is Washington at its worst. It's exactly the kind of thing the American people are fed up with. And exactly why several colleagues and I began this effort to delay and defund Obamacare back in July. It appears that this particular fight will end much the same way Obamacare began, in a last-minute deal negotiated in back rooms and forced on Congress and on the American people. The Washington establishment can't bring itself to believe that this is why Congress's approval ratings are so low, because Washington doesn't listen to the American people. It ignores them. And when the American people can no longer be ignored, the administration shuts down national parks, blocks veterans from going to their own memorials, uses the IRS to target certain groups, and holds hostage critical funding for cancer research, low-income women and children, veterans' health benefits, border security, and our National Guard. It's shameful how Washington treats the American people, and the people are right to be upset about that. The media keeps asking, was it worth it? My answer is that it's always worth it to do the right thing. Fighting against an abusive government in defense of protecting the individual rights of the American people is always the right thing. Some say we shouldn't have fought because we couldn't win. But this country wasn't built by fighting only when victory was absolutely certain. In fact, some of the most important victories in our history were the result of fighting battles against significant odds.
Watch that now. The Majority Leader.
Could we have order in the Senate?
We're going to open the government, we're going to pay our bills, and then we're going to sit down and we are going to negotiate.
Going to be not too many questions answered tonight. I want to go watch the ball game.
I have a question for Senator Durbin, actually.
Okay.
Start out. There's an appropriations anomaly in this bill that is on a dam that's on the Ohio River contiguous with Illinois. Can you explain why that is in this piece of legislation?
I want to make matter of record. I did not ask for that.
I know. Senator Feinstein is.
Okay, everybody. I thought this might come. This is not an earmark. It saves the money, the taxpayers lots of money. It enables the Corps of Engineers to continue a project. Had we not done this so-called anomaly, the Corps of Engineers would have had to spend before the last day of December $80 million to stop the project.
And unfortunately today the United States Senate is saying, you don't have a voice in Washington. You don't have a voice in Washington. This is a terrible deal. And I urge my colleagues here to oppose it. Now, none of us should be surprised that when the Senate votes, this deal is going to pass. And it's going to pass by a big margin. None of us should be surprised. But, Mr. President, the outcome could have been different. I would ask you, Mr. President, to imagine a different world.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome to the alternative universe in the House of Representatives.
A little flavor of the gallery over on the House side. They say 120 middle schoolers just filed into the House viewing gallery, wondering if Tea Party might still give them a little fireworks display. that the measure the Senate passed will come to the House under what's called unanimous consent, allowing them to take it up immediately without having to run it through the Rules Committee, as does most legislation. That's not.
Well, people who get their health insurance through their employer across America, virtually all of them have employer contributions. This is common. There's nothing sinister or sneaky about it. And so now he calls it a government subsidy, the employer contribution. All I ask is this: I'll go on the insurance exchange, happily do so. Treat me the same way when it comes to employer contribution for my health insurance and my staff health insurance as every other federal employee. Just that simple. He says no. That's special treatment for members of Congress. Well, the senator from Louisiana is just plain wrong. And he stands here on the floor and talks about special privileges for members of Congress. Let me tell you what I'm prepared to do. I'm prepared to put a specific provision in the law which says no member of Congress or member of any congressional staff shall receive any special privileges or additional rights not available to every other person under the SHOP or insurance exchange program. How's that? I could live with that.
And yet you're getting a notification in the mail, your health insurance has been dropped because of Obamacare. Mr. President, it is sad that the U.S. Senate says we will do nothing to answer your plight. We created your plight, but we will do nothing. Mr. President, it is sad that when you have James Hoffa, the president of the Teamsters, saying that Obamacare is destroying the health care of millions of working men and women in this country and the families who depend upon them, that the U.S. Senate says we're closed for business, the Washington establishment has exempted itself. So the problems, the suffering of working America is not the concern of the Washington establishment. That is sad. But at the same time, I am optimistic, I am inspired by the millions of Americans who have risen up. And if the American people continue to rise up, I am confident that in time, the U.S. Senate will follow the lead of the House of Representatives and listen to the American people. That is our job. That is our responsibility. This is a terrible deal today, but it's a terrible deal for the American people. But at the same time, the path forward, if the American people continue to rise up, we're going to turn this around. We're going to restore jobs. We're going to restore economic growth. We're going to restore the ability of people who are struggling to climb the economic ladder and to achieve the American dream. And we're going to stop the #1 job killer in this country, that is Obamacare. Mr. President, I rise in opposition to this deal that does not serve the best interest of the men and women each of us represent.
Mr. Phelps, isn't this going to happen all over again in a few months?
No.